So after the holidays, I've been cleaning and organizing and going through my things, and I found this bag of moss that I bought. I planned to build a terrarium that I never actually built. I kind of just threw some rocks in a glass open air bowl. And once I came across this, I thought, let's get it out of the package, give it some moisture, and pull out this bowl that I had placed rocks in and then never actually got around to making into a terrarium. I realized kind of right away I had not even added enough of these pebbles, so I grabbed small pebbles and some river rocks. I added it to what was already in the bowl and mixed it up a little bit. One of the things that I'll go back and do eventually is add in charcoal and soil. But I'm getting out my tweezers. These are handy dandy. I use these for plant maintenance, but they also come in handy with the terrarium. And I know I want to add a plant. I was thinking that philodendron Brazil propagation. However, I decided against it. I just don't think it's the right plant. And plus, I've let the roots get kind of way too long for a terrarium of this size. Now, as I'm adding in the moss, I'm kind of going over the plants in my collection and thinking about what do I have that maybe I could either transplant or that I could divide and add into this plant, into this terrarium. With the moss, it's not going to be able to get as much light as, say, some of my other houseplants. So I've got to think about that. What can go in here that can take what I would call moderate indirect light, maybe not even on the bright side, but literally moderate indirect light. And so I'm kind of thinking about that as I'm building it and playing with the moss. I already feel peaceful when I'm doing this because just seeing the green is really calming, and it's one reason why I do love having plants in my house. And working with the moss, though, not quite as easy as I thought. It stuck to the tweezers a lot, so I did kind of struggle with that a little bit. And maybe I don't know if you have any tips, if you're somebody who builds terrariums or you have one, you know about them, please leave me a comment. So I start adding back in some of the polished rocks that I had in the open air terrarium originally. And as I'm placing them in there, I'm kind of looking at how each one sort of works with the colors. And I end up taking some of these out. So I take out the pink and kind of the red polished rock, pull those out, and keep in the more muted and clear toned rocks. And like I said, I'm really looking to add more green to the house, and so I want to keep that kind of the theme. I also have this tiny little terracotta pot, and I finally realized what I might be able to do when it comes to adding a live plant. So I have this Calathea Zebrina. You can see where it's been sunburned, too much direct light over the summer. And it also grew this new rhizome, and I thought, why don't I just go ahead and divide that, and I can repot it here in this little terracotta pot. And it definitely is, I would not call Calatheas a low light plant. I actually, from my experience, there are very few plants that actually do well in low light. However, a Calathea, it can definitely do pretty well in what I would call moderate indirect light, though really bright direct light would be best. However, keeping it in this terracotta pot also allows me to pull it out if necessary and make sure that it gets more light, especially if I notice stunted growth. Before I put it back, or I put it in there, place it in the terrarium, I am top dressing it with a little bit of worm castings. And then I'm using distilled water just to make sure that its soil is nice and moist, because that potting mix definitely was quite dry. And I'm also going to make sure that this terracotta pot, being tiny and adorable, it does have a drainage hole, and I wanted to see this. It does work. I have water running through and collecting in the water catch tray, so perfect. And while I was already kind of liking the terrarium and how it was turning out, now I love the terrarium. Again, if you've been to my channel before, you know that I love Calatheas, and so seeing this Calathea Zebrina in the terrarium kind of just made my day, and I realized that it gave it a little bit of height and dimension that it was lacking, and I'm really enjoying that and thinking about other plants that I might be able to add. Again, this is going to be an open air terrarium, and so what it's missing, I know right now, it needs that acidic soil, and I also need to make sure that it's got some charcoal in there as well. But now, why not add a couple of decorations? I did have these golden mushrooms hanging around. You might have seen them in a plant haul. It was like an accessory haul that I did in the fall, and I'm glad that I left these kind of to the side instead of putting them into my houseplants like I was thinking I would do. Now I can add them here, and they are kind of a muted little bit of sparkle, a little golden sparkle in the terrarium. But I don't feel like it detracts from the moss. It's not detracting from the Calathea, so I really feel like it was coordinating with it rather well. But again, I'm really a novice to terrariums, and so if you have any ideas or thoughts, let me know. I'm also adding in this polished agate that I had, and I also have some clear crystal quartz, so I'm going to go ahead and add those as well. You might be able to hear my cat right now, by the way. She wants to be in the video too, I think. And here it is, my new terrarium with my Calathea Zebrina. I am smitten with this terrarium so far, even though, again, I'm a novice, and it definitely needs a lot of work. If you have any tips, please leave them in the comments. Any opinions or thoughts about what I could add or even take out that you think would make it better, I would love to hear it. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and until next time, be well and take care.